Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Alright, so a little backstory. This happened about 4 months ago. I had just finished an 11-hour shift and needed to stop at Home Depot to get a new drill. I just wanted to run in, buy it, run out and get home. Of course, it wasn't that easy. I had just gotten to the drills and was looking over the options in my price range. When I hear I had just gotten to the drills, I was looking over the options in my price range when I hear it. Excuse me, where are the wax toilet rings? There are a few other people in the area, so I ignored it, assuming there is an employee nearby. It's also important to add, as I work in traffic control and just got out of the job site, I am wearing high visibility pants and high visibility vest shirt that says company name traffic control on the back. A radio with a shoulder mic can have a traffic control technician certification card displayed on my vest. The employees here wear orange aprons and normal clothes. Hello? Do you want to do your job or just stand there looking at tools? At this point, I glanced around to see what was going on. I assumed some customer was berating an employee, which happens a lot at this location unfortunately. I was surprised, however, to see some 30-year-old guy in a white button-down shirt and tie looking at me like I'm stupid. Can I help you? I said, still not sure of the situation, but that seemed to tick him off. Yes, you can tell me where the damn wax rings are, he shouted. At this point, it clicked in my head what was going on. I'm sorry, sir, I started saying. I don't work. I don't want to hear anything but an aisle number, he yelled, interrupting me and drawing the attention of a few other shoppers. Honestly, how did you get this job being so stupid? I tried again. I don't work, but he cuts me off again. Oh my god, why is this so hard? Where are the wax rings? Now, I don't know why, but I got an idea in my head that I thought would be amusing, and at the very least might get him away from me. I pointed behind him, at a random aisle where wax rings almost certainly weren't in, and I said, "It's right there." Finally, how stupid can you freaking be? He yelled, huffing and storming off. I thought that was the end of it. I figured he'd realize they are not in Matt's aisle and then find an actual employee to ask. Nope. He came right back and started yelling that I don't even know how to do my job and that his best friend is a district manager and he'll have my job. During his yelling, I noticed a few shoppers staring at us. I just raised my hand, pointed to the same aisle as before, and said they are right there. Look, can't you see them? How stupid can you be? I retorted, taking glee and throwing the last part back at him, but he wasn't amused. He smacked my hand down and shoved me, yelling something about stupid punk teenagers. That was a bad idea. I'm not a skilled fighter or super strong or anything, but I know when I can take someone. This guy clearly didn't. I punched him once, square in the nose, presumably breaking it, and he fell back, hitting his head on the concrete ground hard. Someone call the police! This guy just attacked me! He yelled as the crowd nearby grew larger and larger. I was worried, obviously it was in self-defense, but I kept thinking that I should have shoved him and not punched him. I was worried that if he hits his head to the point it caused a lot of damage, if I could get in trouble. A manager came over and asked what was going on, and he started screaming that this employee attacked me when I tried to ask for simple directions. Look what he did. By this point, blood is visible on the spot he hit his head, along with the blood pouring out of both nostrils. Who did? The manager asked, puzzled and concerned, looking around at the actual employees who were still on their way over to the commotion. Oh my god, are you all this stupid? Him! He screamed, pointing at me. He doesn't work here, sir, the manager said. The manager got on a radio for more employees, ignoring the man's insistence that I do, and he told me to follow him. He takes me to the security office and has me wait for the police. Luckily, multiple customers and the cameras saw my side of the story, and since the police went to the injured person first to render aid, they also interviewed witnesses over there before coming to me. When they came in, I gave my side of the story. The police said it contradicts his versions of events, but it matches a witness' statements. They said the guy was yelling that he wanted me arrested and locked up, and that's when the manager pulled up the footage, which showed him hit my hand and shoved me. And I only hit him after that one time. Also, in my favor, I was facing him with a drill shelf behind me when he shoved me, so I was somewhat concerned. Then he asked if I wanted to press charges, and since he wanted to get me arrested, I decided hell yeah, lock him up. They arrested him, and a few months later I found out he pleaded guilty and avoided jail time, but now he has an assault charge on his record. This took place back when I was a new security guard, so the details are a little vague. This was about 15 years ago at everyone's favorite hellhole, Walmart. Okay, the backstory. I had gotten a job as a contracted security guard, a rent-a-cop. Basically, my job was to provide temporary security when a client needed something, say for an event or a break-in. The contracts were often only for a few weeks, a few only for a day or two. This one had been ongoing for almost 2 months when I arrived to replace a guard who had quit. Now this took place when a Walmart in my city had gone 24 hours and this one had been renovating, which was why I was there. A lot of the staff were stressed from their renovations and tried to stock shelves with customers in a way. My job was to monitor the back door into the building and allow only the contracts access and ensure no one walked in and helped themselves because this was a main stock room. These were 12-hour shifts, and due to a shortage of guards from a flood, I only got a 30-minute break and I had to call one of our mobile guards to cover. Thankfully, there was a McDonald's in a Walmart, something I only went to on occasion, but they were okay with me eating in there. Also, I was told to keep my phone on me in case of emergencies. I was also told that under no circumstances was I to do the job of the loss prevention in the store, as I was not trained to do it and didn't work for Walmart. Anyways, most of the night managers were pretty chill when it came to me being there. But there was this one, we will call her Karen, yep, hair and all, hated the fact that all I did for 12 hours between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. was sit by a door and read or study. I was due to take the provincial security guard test within a month, and she would frequently try to bully me into doing stuff that was not my job, like sweep the floors in the stockroom or help load pallets for the staff to restock shelves. This led to more than one phone call from my supervisor to hers, reminding them what was laid out in my contract. Also, if I did help out and got hurt, workers' compensation would not cover it because I was doing work outside my duties. After the third or fourth time this happened, she upped her game. Even began to pester me while I was on my break by trying to say that I was taking too long, even though I only took the 30 minutes. One thing I should point out is that I have hypoglycemia, so I would often buy a few things to snack on during the shift to keep my blood sugar stable. Mostly fruit, juice, water, and nuts that I kept in a small cooler under my chair. She tried to tell me that I would not be allowed to bring this, and that I was lying about my blood sugar condition to be a lazy pig. There was even one occasion when I grabbed some stuff there and I went to pay, and she ordered the cashier to close out as I got to the till, and I was nearly late to my location because I had to get in line somewhere else. Needless to say, I started grabbing stuff on the way instead of there. She also tried to sneak in through the stockroom door because she parked her car back there and got pissed when I wouldn't let her, as this area was a construction zone and you needed PPE to event it, and would frequently tell me that a woman has no place doing this kind of work, and the only reason you took this job was to meet men. I started to document everything and gave copies to my supervisor when I got my shifts for each week. Anyway, sorry about the long intro. Just painting a picture about how this woman was acting. All pity stuff. But after 5 weeks of this, anyone would reach a breaking point. Well, near the end of my 5th week, I was at the McDonald's and decided to treat myself to some fries when Karen came stomping up and I rolled my eyes, thinking, what now? She glared at the tray in my hands and back at me and said, I need you to come with me now. Little worried, I asked what was wrong and she pointed to a teenage girl, maybe about 16, we'll call Liz, crying her eyes out. I just caught a shoplifter and I need you to hold her for the police. I was a little stunned that she would ask this and said, sorry, but I can't do this. You have to get your own LPO to handle that. I should point out the reason we don't do this is, if this was a wrongful arrest and went to court, I and the company I work for will be liable as well. She smirked at me and said, oh, I sent them home. Don't need them here if you are. And why should we pay for more security than we need? I was floored. I honestly felt my brain come to a screeching halt on this. Then my phone started to ring, so I put my tray down to answer it. It was a mobile guard who had to cut my break short to deal with an alarm call nearby. I told him what was going on up front, and after a long pause and very creative swearing, told me he would call the night supervisor. As I pull my phone away, I see Karen grab my tray and end it in the trash. She glares at me and says, "Now get your lazy fat self up to the LPO office and start the paperwork." I've had enough at this point, and the cashier at the McDonald's had seen what happened and had flagged me over to hand me a fresh order of fries in a takeout bag. She even tossed in a couple of kid-sized cheeseburgers. I tell Karen, "Do it yourself, it's not my job," and I leave. She follows me, dragging Liz with her and yelling about incompetence and how she will have me fired. But she did not follow me into the construction area. She didn't want to get her fancy shoes dirty. About 20 minutes later, my mobile supervisor showed up with another guard to cover my spot, and I thought, oh, I am totally going to get canned. He tells me to head to the office behind the customer service desk. When I get there, there is Karen, Liz, 2 cops, and the general manager for this location. Also, one of the loss prevention officers and my boss, the owner of the company. By this point, it was nearly 4 a.m., so if he decided to make a site visit himself, then crap was going to hit the fan. He asked me to tell him what had happened, and before I could get a word out, Karen started ranting that I was lazy, incompetent, and all I did was eat or sleep on a job and took long calls on my phone. She even tried to claim that I brought in a laptop and was playing computer games instead of doing my job. I've never even owned a laptop. My boss listened, then turned to me and asked what happened. So I explained it and even told him that the cashiers in the McDonald's witnessed it. The loss prevention officer also confirmed that Karen had told his shift that they weren't needed that night and had canceled the shifts for them for the rest of the week. The GM was furious and turned on Karen so fast I thought she was going to snap her neck. Also, my boss brought out a stack of papers and handed it to the GM. Photocopies of the reports I had made on this woman's harassment. I had also had a guard that did a job on my days off to do the same. Learned fast in this type of work to document everything. Well, you could have heard the pin drop when a GM looked up from the first 3 pages and said that she had heard enough. The cops left. Apparently, Karen tried to claim that I was helping Liz steal some stuff. I was trying to get me arrested too. The other guard covered the rest of my shift and my boss told me to come and see him after my weekend, which started that morning. Found out later that Liz didn't actually steal anything and that Karen thought a bottle of Coke she was drinking came out of the cooler, but Liz had brought it from vending machines outside. Also, Karen had been let go for breaking company guideline. She wasn't supposed to be able to cancel the LPO shifts, and harassment of me and other contract guards, and theft for tossing my lunch in the trash. I worked at that location for another month after that, not a single issue for the remainder of my time there. Hey everyone, I'll start by stating that my sister Emily is blind. I've always been fiercely protective of her. And my story begins when Emily and I decided to visit our favorite amusement park one day. In our country, given Emily's condition, we were allowed to use the accessibility line, which is shorter to make her experience as enjoyable as possible. This system works great for us as it minimizes the time Emily has to stand around in crowded places, which can be overwhelming for her. As we approached the front of the line for the roller coaster, the one Emily had been excited about all week, I noticed a woman in a regular line glaring at us. She had the classic Karen look. Short hair, sunglasses perched on her head, and an expression that screamed she was about to make a scene. I hoped she would let it go, but alas, that was wishful thinking. Without warning, Karen stormed over to us. "Why do you get to skip the line?" she demanded. Before I could explain, she continued. "It's unfair. We've been waiting for about an hour, and you just waltz right to the front?" I tried to remain calm. "My sister is blind," I explained, gesturing towards Emily. The park has policies in place to help guests with disabilities, but Karen wasn't having any of it. "Blind? That's no excuse. You're just using that to cheat the system." Her words were like daggers, and I saw Emily shrink back, a reaction to the hostility in Karen's voice. Then, without a semblance of decency, Karen reached out and snatched Emily's glasses, tossing them to the ground. "Maybe this will give you your sight back." She sneered as she smacked Emily lightly on the head in a cruel jest. I was in shock, frozen for a moment at the audacity of this woman. Emily was trembling, tears welling up in her eyes, not from the physical pain but from the humiliation and the sudden aggressive invasion of her space. Before I could react, Karen's rant was cut short by an unexpected turn of events. Out of nowhere, a soda bottle came flying, hitting Karen squarely on the side of her head. The bottle shattered upon impact, soaking her in soda and leaving her stunned and drenched. The crowd that had gathered gasped, and Karen's hands immediately went to her head. Her blood was now visible among the shards of glass and sticky soda. She turned looking for her assailant, and that's when she saw a middle-aged woman back in the line, standing there with a smirk on her face. You crazy witch!" Karen screamed at her. Security was quick to arrive, followed by the park's medical team and the police. As paramedics tended to Karen's wounds, the police started questioning everyone involved. Witnesses came forward recounting Karen's unprovoked assault on Emily and the lady's reactionary defense of my sister. Despite Karen's attempts to play the victim, the evidence was overwhelming. The security cameras had captured the entire incident, from her berating us to her physical assault on Emily, and finally, the lady's response. In the end, Karen was arrested for assault. The police were kinda understanding of the lady's actions, considering them a defense of my sister. Emily and I were shaken but unharmed, though the ordeal was deeply upsetting for both of us. The amusement park staff were incredibly supportive, offering us free passes and ensuring Emily received medical attention for the shock and any potential injuries from the incident. They apologized profusely, though it was no fault of theirs. As for Karen, I don't know what became of her after that day. I hope she learned something from the experience, but more than anything, I hope she never puts another family through what we endured. Emily and I had moved past the incident stronger and more united than ever. We still love amusement parks, and we refuse to let one bad experience deter us from enjoying our lives to the fullest. And yeah, for those who are asking what happened with the lady that defended us, well, I didn't really get to even thank her. She just left and was nowhere to be found once the investigations were done and Karen was escorted in handcuffs. We will always be grateful for her. Some background. I work at a company that primarily supports hotel Wi-Fi, and taking calls from guests needing help connecting is part of that. Part of my job at the time of this happening was being an escalation point for unresolved guest problems. One time, roughly 2 years ago, there was some huge hurricane going through Florida, so a lot of our hotels in Alabama and northern Florida were packed with people evacuating their homes. Most people staying at these hotels were bringing most of their possessions as well. Anyways, I got a message from the guest support team asking me to take a call from one of these guests from Florida so I could help them connect a dozen or so devices they had to the Wi-Fi. For some reason, they were refusing to connect and Tier 1 support couldn't resolve it. I start talking to the guy and he's immediately hostile towards me and gives me the whole "I know what I'm doing, I'm tech-savvy" shtick. I shrugged it off, and after about 30 minutes I was able to get every single one of his devices connected. After that, he was still incredibly pissed off and started ranting about how incompetent the employees he had been previously talking to were, and being upset at me that I took so long to get his crap connected too. I forgot most of the profanity he was spewing at me, but I will never forget him saying, "Your techs are worthless. You should hang them from their intestines." At this point, I should have just hung up on him, but I froze up a little and let him continue. He ended up insisting that I help him set up his Plex server, which is against the hotel's TOS since he could potentially be using it to stream movies illegally. I finally got my manager involved and we called the GM of the hotel and brought her up to speed while the guest was on hold. I got her conferenced into the call and she immediately began chewing him out and telling him he cannot talk to their support staff this way and that we had other more considerate guests to be assisting. He tried defending himself, telling her how long we took, but she was not having it and told him he had 2 hours to get all of his belongings and leave, or she would call the police. I'm not sure why she let me stay on the call for this long, but this guy begged her to let him stay since he had just finished luggaging everything he owned into his room and every other hotel around was booked. She didn't budge, however, and after scolding the guy some more, she told me I could disconnect. Never in my life had I seen justice delivered so swiftly. This is a story I always tell people when talking about crazy support calls. Please remember this the next time you consider blowing up at tech support staff. A couple of years ago, my husband and I moved to his hometown after spending time abroad and starting a business. We needed a job to make ends meet as we grew our business, so we both took a job as a server/bartender at a beautiful historic inn and restaurant in our town. The bosses were an old couple. We realized pretty quickly that the woman of the couple wore the pants and that she had no idea what she was doing. In addition to this, she was a real jerk. The place was horribly mismanaged in a market where it was impossible not to make money. However, the hours were convenient since the restaurant was only open on a limited schedule, and we were the only servers who didn't have terrible substance abuse issues. So we quickly became the de facto managers. We are both business-minded people, and we started thinking that we could really run a place well if given the opportunity. After being there for about 6 months, we made the owners an offer to run the hotel and restaurant for a year for a small salary, but with a potential for a huge bonus at the end of the year, calculated as a hefty percentage of an increase in profit over the prior year. After looking at all the numbers, we realized quickly that we had the potential to make a lot of money very quickly, with almost no expenses as we would be living and eating there too. So when the owners accepted, we hit the ground running. And within 2 months, we were on track to quadruple the profit of the previous year. Not to brag, but there was some seriously low-hanging fruit. Quickly, however, there was some big problems. We'd been told that we would get to move into the owner's suite quickly after we got some experience under our belts. But that never happened. So we spent the entire year living in a hotel room. We'd been told that we would have free reign in decision-making but continued to be micromanaged like crazy. Just absolutely moronic crap like not putting flats and fitted sheets in the same washer. We thought we knew what we were getting into with our bosses, but they turned out to be crazier than we ever anticipated. I could write a book on these people, and I actually am working on one. But for the sake of brevity, I'll just say this. The guy of the couple was nutty, volatile, racist, and sexist. But I would have worked for 5 of him before I had to put up with one of his wife. She was all of the above plus dishonest, greedy, conniving, manipulative, judgmental, haughty, and nearly every other vile attribute you can think of, all with the face of a bulldog eating a lemon. We lived with them. We were never off the clock, and besides the part of the winter when the hotel closed for renovations, we had 3 days off the whole year, which we had to fight tooth and nail. She wouldn't let us hire someone to work the night shift, so with our huge increase in business, this meant that we were often taking calls until 3 or 4 in the mornings or in season weekend nights. We were exhausted and beat down, and even though we were racking up a large sum of money, our other business had a breakthrough, and we knew we couldn't last another year. We really turned the place around in a year. The owners were generally disliked in our small southern town, so we did a huge job in improving the public face of the business. Suddenly, we had a local clientele. We were getting phenomenal reviews. We cleaned out the deadweight staff and retrained the ones worse than them. The chef, who was also a jerk, hated the shake-up and being held accountable for the first time ever, so he tried to play hardball with the owners, and he pulled at them or me, and we'd made them a ton of money, whereas he had never had a restaurant here in the black, so he got his walking papers and we got a way better chef. The business was outpacing our wildest expectations, and we were setting up the following year to be a truly exceptional year as well. Even though we knew we couldn't stick it out again, we wanted to do all we could to set them up for success. A month before our contract was up, we told the owners we would not be renewing our contract for the following year. They were shocked. We offered to stick around to help train a new management team and do whatever we could to make a smooth transition. We showed them the numbers where we could hire a good GM, a restaurant, an events manager, and around-the-clock front desk team for less than they would end up paying us for the year. They would sit on their biscuits and take it easy. They said they would think about it. Come to find out through offhand little comments that the lady owner thought we were lazy and weren't working all that hard. She couldn't believe they had gotten duped into paying us such a huge percentage of the profits. She had no concept of the additional workload that comes with tripling the business levels. They decided to go back to doing it all themselves. I will say that telling our team that we were leaving was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. A lot of tears were shed, especially from the old-timers who knew how bad it was before we came. There was a bit of Stockholm Syndrome going on in the early days. To the dismay of the owner, I'd also sent emails to all of my contacts, vendors, clients, customers that we were moving on, and that we've been proud to continue the tradition of excellence. She hadn't wanted me to reach out and just wanted to tell them we were gone when they called, because that is super professional. We said our goodbyes was a fat check in our hands and got the hell out of Dodge. We'd secretly bought a house 5 hours away, so we moved away in a jiffy. Now for revenge. When I realized that they didn't want to hire a new management team, we worked on compiling a huge manual for them on all the new procedures, all events we booked and so on. I convinced them to sit down with me and go over it, but they didn't take it seriously, so I also trained the staff on whatever I could, and they all fell apart immediately. The owner told the staff that we'd let them get lazy and that things would be changing. In her mind, this meant calling up events that had already signed contracts and tried to squeeze more out of them, in spite of the fact that we'd nearly doubled the average event value and booked twice the events, and overstaffing servers, who she didn't have to pay much, and understaffing housekeepers, who she did have to pay. Oh, and overtime pay? It doesn't matter that you worked 45 hours, she's not paying time and a half. I am aware that the last one is illegal, and I've informed the affected employees as such. She was also drinking more than ever and verbally berating both staff and guests. We have prided ourselves on making our staff feel valued and appreciated, and they were loyal because of it. What she failed to realize was that they were loyal to us, not to the business or to her. So they left, all of them. That great new chef, he quit less than a month after we left. All the wait staff, they followed suit one by one. The entire housekeeping staff, all of who have been there for over 4 years, they quit last week. The whole housekeeping staff, it's the middle of the high season, and the owners had to clean 45 rooms. The chef they hired to replace the other chef walked out. They have now been through 3 chefs in 10 months. The reviews are plummeting. My husband's parents still live in the town and people often ask about us to wish us well. We left politely and spoke highly of the owners to anyone who would listen, but everyone tells his parents that they couldn't believe we were able to do it for a year. We genuinely wanted the place to succeed and did everything we could to set it up for success. But after they crap on all the work we did, it is more than a little satisfying to see them finally appreciate how hard we worked. Long-time reader, first-time poster, so be gentle. I used to work for a company in the UK based in London with a regular travel all around the country. We had very long hours and were required to be on site when work began at 7:30 a.m., while you could be hundreds of miles away. You were allowed to stay away, but you had to get approval from a senior manager, usually only agreed through gritted teeth because of the difficult expenses policy and the rest of the senior manager who approved the expenses. More on this guy soon. I used to get up early, commute all around the country, often doing 2 to 3 hours in the car at a time. Most often stopping to fuel the car or just have a break, usually grabbing some breakfast and a coffee, because I was often leaving the house before it was palatable to eat breakfast. I was young and conscientious, so I would buy my own breakfast but buy a coffee separately and keep the receipt for expenses. Usually a £5 breakfast and a £3 coffee. Our expenses policy allowed me to put the whole lot on expenses, but I was conscientious. Anyway, after months of this, I submit my expense claim. If my immediate manager approves it, without batting an eyelid, as he can see the addresses on receipts and the timestamps. So once a manager has approved it, the expenses will go to one senior manager to approve, or maybe 300 claims a week. Major trust issues and seriously backwards. One morning, early at head office, the senior manager comes into my office and tells me to follow him. I follow him to his office, where he explains to me that the company isn't here to buy me freaking coffees. Long story short, I am told to stop playing fast and loose with the expense policy. I wasn't, and that I should follow the rules. And here is the malicious compliance. Speaking to HR, they had a policy about work-related drive-in and EU working time directive, which meant that all the early starts and late finishes had to stop immediately because it was breaching policy and a law. So the next time I had to be on site for 7:30, I was 2 to 3 hours away. I stayed in a hotel the night before. 3-course meals and breakfast all in line with the expense policy and working time policies. This continued for about a month because you can only submit expenses for payment in the last week before payday. My expenses went from £100 a month to £1,000 a month. Expenses submitted, manager approved, sent to senior manager, and I got a phone call to come to headquarters the next day for a talk with the senior manager and the HR. The following day, I attended and got an absolute roasting. What did I say? Who do you think you are? When I could get a word in, I explained how I was traveling in line with company policy, health and safety legislation, whilst also complying with the expense policy, to the letter. HR confirmed. Nothing he could. Needless to say, the policy was changed some months later. I felt much better because I was well rested, fed, and working the hours I was being paid for. There is a huge nationwide electronics retailer in the UK called Currys. They are renowned for having terrible customer service but very occasionally having decent prices. I was in the market for a KitchenAid stand mixer, and my employer had an arrangement where I could buy Curry gift cards for a 10% discount. I was a bit reluctant to use them based on past experiences, but thought I would take advantage of saving a bit of cash and ordered my mixer online. Delivery due in a week. Easy peasy, I thought. It was about £250, $300 before discount. It was about £250 before discount. Delivery day comes and goes, no mixer. The next day I ring up customer service and ask what happened. After 20 minutes on hold, they tell me the product is out of stock and I will need to wait for their next delivery in 10 days' time. Well, not too bad, I'm a patient person. 10 days later, still no mixer or order update, even though it's showing as in stock and available to buy on their website. Back on the phone to customer service. More time on hold, and this time I am told there is an order backlog and they couldn't tell me when it will be delivered, so I ask for a refund. Unfortunately, in the UK, if you pay by gift card, you can only get a refund by gift card. At this point, I had no desire to ever use Currys again and was disappointed in myself for ever giving it a go. I would have no use for a gift card, so I decided to give them a bit more time. No prizes for guessing that this didn't bear fruit. A couple of weeks later, I used the customer service online chat to see what was going on. Again, they are completely unable to help or confirm when/if I would ever receive my order. I asked what I was expected to do, and the bloke said something along the lines of, "No idea, mate. You would have to take it up with our board." Ha 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 ha. Fine. It's malicious compliance time. A quick trip to the company's house website gives me a list of all their directors. Here, for anyone suffering a similar fate. Another hour on LinkedIn and I've tracked them all down. I proceed to send every director a summary of what has happened and links to screenshots of the online chat I had with a customer service rep. Less than a day later, I get a call from the CEO's personal assistant, apologizing profusely and personally, guaranteeing she will sort it out. By the time this all happened, the mixer had gone down by another £60, so she processed my order again and said she would arrange for the accounts team to send me a voucher for the difference. She was genuinely the hero of the story. The very next day my mixer arrives. Happy days. A few days after that, I got a letter with a Currys voucher. I thought this would be the end of my sorry saga. However, as icing on the cake, They proceeded to send me 3 more £60 vouchers at random intervals over the next few months. I can only guess that their admin team is as useless as their customer service team. For completeness, I spent the vouchers on a new oven, which unsurprisingly turned up late and faulty and had to be replaced. So, my ex-wife and I used to have a great relationship, but she has become petty and somewhat vindictive these last couple of months. Our relationship started going downhill after her daughter, my ex-stepdaughter, broke into my house and stole from me and my new wife while we were on vacation together. Yes, I invited my ex-wife and her boyfriend to come on vacation with us, so it would be a family thing. My current wife was completely fine with it. Not only did we invite them, we paid for everything. Plane tickets, rental house, meals, activities, and so on. We've done this before, and it was nice. While we were on this vacation, my ex-wife's daughter broke into our house and stole from us. We had to file a police report because some of the things stolen was medication, and we couldn't get new prescriptions without filing a police report. This upset my ex-wife even though we told her before we called the cops, and she said, "Do what you need to do." Before this, my ex and I would pretty much just buy what the kids needed while we had them. Every once in a while, she'd ask me to split the cost of some things and I would. I have never asked her to split the cost of anything prior to this, but lately she has been asking to split the cost of just about everything. Fine, whatever, I usually get most of the things for the kids anyway. About a month ago, my son needed some new equipment for indoor lax. She asked if I would split and I said fine. When she took him out shopping, they couldn't find everything, so I bought most of it online. I asked her what she bought and how much, and I told her what I bought and how much. It turned out she owed me for the split. It was only $40. I would have let it go, but she hounded me for a week over $5. This pissed her off. She'd be fine when I have to pay her, but gets pissed when she has to pay me. I only asked her for the portion of the split because she asked me to split the cost in the first place. We argued back and forth, and then she came up with a list of things we should not have to split and anything else we would split. So I started keeping track of things that I paid for that were to be split between us. So she gave me her list and what I owe her. Not a lot, I owe her $80. But when I gave her my list and her share, she now owes me $425.